What's going on, YouTube? Listen up, young elder gang. This is Chief Blackball back at you with another banger. Please make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video, fam. I hope this video get at least 100,000 likes. In this video, you will find history, definitions, scripture, information, and, best of all, what we Americans have been deprived of from the beginning, the truth. Keep in mind this content used in this video is intended for entertainment, educational, and informational purposes only. We will give you the total truth, as we best understand it today. Be sure to hit that like button, young elder gang. Hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Hit that bell and don't forget to check back with us every day for new content. In the labyrinth of power and influence, few entities remain as enigmatic as the Jason Society. The Jason Society refers to a highly secretive group of elite scientists who advise the United States government on complex scientific and technological issues primarily related to defense and national security, often working on classified projects. Named after the mythical Jason from the Argonauts, the group is known for its high level of expertise and provides independent analysis to policymakers. To provide the government with expert advice on sensitive scientific and technological matters, particularly in the realm of defense. Composed of top scientists from various fields like physics, engineering, computer science, and biology, often including Nobel laureates. These guys rank high on the high tablet in the Illuminati. In fact, they are the main power source. Most of the Jason Society's work is classified, meaning details about their research and findings are not publicly available. This clandestine group, shrouded in secrecy, holds significant sway over the military-industrial complex. The name Jason is sometimes explained as an acronym, standing either for July, August, September, October, November, the months in which the group would typically meet, or tongue-in-cheek for Junior Achiever, somewhat older now. However, neither explanation is correct. In fact, the name is not an acronym at all. Mildred Goldberger, wife of group member Murph Goldberger, disliked the name given by the Pentagon, Project Sunrise, and suggested the group be named Jason, inspired by the mythological character Jason. Jason's studies have included a now mothballed system for communicating with submarines using extremely long radio waves, Project Seafarer, Project Sanguine, an astronomical technique for overcoming the atmosphere's distortion, adaptive optics, the many problems of missile defense, technologies for verifying compliance with treaties banning nuclear tests, a 1979 report describing CO2-driven global warming, and the MCNAMARA line's electronic barrier, a system of computer-linked sensors developed during the Vietnam War, which became the precursor to the modern electronic battlefield. Their existence hints at a hidden world where science fiction bleeds into reality. But who are the members of this elusive society, and what is their true agenda? Rumors swirl around its connection to elite universities and government agencies. The Jason Society operates in the shadows, their influence felt but rarely seen. Who truly holds the reins of power in our world? At the end of World War II, many of the country's leading scientists, who had been involved in such war research as the atomic bomb and radar, left full-time government work and returned to the college campuses. The military, of course, did not want to lose all this valuable talent. In addition to its own in-house laboratories, the Defense Department sought to establish ongoing consulting liaison with first-rate scientists. At first, the service was obtained through the RAND Corporation and some scientific advisory committees attached directly to the Pentagon. Some scientists also consulted for industrial corporations working on defense contracts. The industrial consulting jobs paid extremely well, but the scientists involved felt that they were not close enough to the center of power to influence policy decisions. On the other hand, scientists in Washington often felt restricted by the particular government agency they consulted for, and also found the government consulting fee scales to be very low. Therefore, the idea of a new independent research and consulting organization arose. This was the Institute for Defense Analyses, IDA. Set up nominally as a private nonprofit corporation, IDA worked on the basis of contracts with the Pentagon for particular research problems of interest to the military. IDA could determine its own salary scales, and it hoped to attract high-caliber scientists with the promise of considerable freedom in their choice of problem to be worked on. A group of the very brightest young scientists was recruited into a subgroup of IDA called Jason. The whole success of this enterprise depended upon establishing it as a mark of highest prestige to be invited into this elite group. The military-industrial complex, a term coined by President Eisenhower in his farewell address, refers to the intricate web of relationships and dependencies that exist between government entities, military forces, and the private industries that supply them. The military-industrial complex, MIC, is a network of people and organizations that work together to produce military technology and weapons. This symbiotic relationship, fueled by vast sums of money and a shared interest in maintaining global dominance, has become a defining characteristic of the modern geopolitical landscape. And at the heart of this intricate web, some believe, lies the Jason Society. The society's influence within the military-industrial complex is multifaceted and pervasive. The Jason Society's control over the military-industrial complex extends beyond mere influence. It encompasses the very fabric of technological advancement itself. Their access to cutting-edge research and their ability to control the flow of information has led some to believe that the society possesses a technological advantage decade ahead of anything publicly known. This technological supremacy, however, comes at a cost: the suppression of potentially world-changing inventions that threaten the status quo. It is alleged that the Jason Society maintains a tight grip on the patent process, ensuring that technologies deemed too disruptive or dangerous never see the light of day. This control allows them to maintain a technological stranglehold, dictating the pace of progress and ensuring that the public remains blissfully unaware of their true potential. The implications of this technological suppression are far-reaching, impacting everything from energy production to healthcare and beyond. Imagine a world where cancer has been eradicated, where energy is clean and abundant, where poverty and hunger are distant memories. These possibilities, and countless others, may already be within our grasp, hidden away in the vaults of the Jason Society, deemed too dangerous for public consumption. The illusion of progress, carefully curated and controlled, masks a darker truth: that we are being deliberately held back, our true potential stifled by a select few who believe they know what's best for humanity. The military has the power to review patent applications and restrict certain inventions from being patented. This is done to protect national security. How the military controls patent law: Invention Secrecy Act. This act allows the military to withhold patents on inventions that could be harmful to national security. Patent Security Category Review List. The military provides the Patent Office with a list of sensitive technologies. Secrecy orders. The military can issue secrecy orders to restrict inventions from being patented. These orders can prevent the invention from being patented, require it to be kept secret, and more. Why the military controls patent law. The military needs to ensure that the equipment and weapon systems it uses are functional, sustainable, and affordable. The military needs to protect national security. How the military works with the patent system. The military acquires and licenses intellectual property from companies. The military works with the Patent Office to review patent applications. The military can receive royalties from companies that license inventions developed by the military. Controlling the patent keeps them ahead. If you want a patent, you have to go through them. If they like your patent, they turn you down and steal it. If you're lucky, they may make you a deal. The military stays 40 years ahead of the public. Means that the military actively develops and utilizes technology and tactics significantly further in advance than what is readily available or known to the general public, often maintaining a substantial technological gap to ensure combat readiness in potential future conflicts. The military invests heavily in research and development, often exploring cutting-edge technologies before they become mainstream. Many military advancements are kept secret to maintain a strategic advantage, meaning the public might not be aware of the full extent of military capabilities. The military needs to be able to quickly adopt new technologies and tactics to respond to evolving threats, which can lead to a significant gap with civilian applications. The Jason Society also is connected with M12, Majestic 12, also known as Magic 12, and MJ-12 for short, the code name of a secret committee of scientists, military leaders, and government officials formed in 1947 by an executive order by U.S. President Harry S. Truman to facilitate recovery and investigation of alien spacecraft. The Jason Society control most of the privately owned advanced technology labs. They control most of the dump underground bases. They control Area 51. They own Lockheed. Lockheed Martin is a global aerospace and defense corporation that specializes in advanced technology systems, products, and services. What they do? design, develop, manufacture, integrate, and sustain advanced technology systems, provide space and mission solutions, including human spacecraft and strategic deterrence, develop technologies to help warfighters stay ahead of electromagnetic spectrum and information-based threats, provide military troops with training and logistical solutions. Who they work with: the Jason Society, the U.S. Department of Defense, and U.S. federal government agencies, international governments, and commercial operators. What they make: air-to-air missiles, helicopter-launched anti-armor missiles, man-portable short-range anti-armor and assault weapons, and kinetic energy hypervelocity missiles. Glenn L. Martin founded the Glenn L. Martin Company in Los Angeles, California. In 1912, Alan and Malcolm Lockheed founded the Alco Hydro Airplane Company in 1912, which was later renamed the Lockheed Aircraft Company. The Cold War was a period of geopolitical tension between the United States and the Soviet Union that lasted from 1947 until the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991. The war was fought primarily through economic and political actions, propaganda, and espionage. The original political philosophical outlook of IDA and Jason was boldly stated in terms of Cold War ideology. Their literature of 10 years ago told of the creation of IDA as arising from the inescapable realization that international communism is imperialistic in nature and that its goal is no less than world domination. Then, noting that the real war was American science versus Soviet science, IDA traced its birth to the fact that the government, specifically the Department of Defense, in an attempt to strengthen its application of the scientific method toward the solution of broad problems of military policy and strategy, sought some machinery by which it could reach more effectively into the reservoir of technological talent in the nation's scientific community. Established during the Cold War, partly in response to the launch of Sputnik to leverage the expertise of prominent scientists for national security issues. Jason is an independent group of elite scientists that advises the United States government on matters of science and technology, mostly of a sensitive nature. The group was created in the aftermath of the Sputnik launch as a way to reinvigorate the idea of having the nation's preeminent scientists help the government with defense problems, similar to the way that scientists helped in World War II, but with a new and younger generation. It was established in 1960 and has somewhere between 30 and 60 members. Its work first gained public notoriety as the source of the Vietnam War's MCNAMARA line electronic barrier. Although most of its research is military-focused, Jason also produced early work on the science of global warming and acid rain. Current unclassified research interests include health informatics, cyber warfare, and renewable energy. For administrative purposes, Jason's activities are run through the MITRE Corporation, a not-for-profit corporation in McLean, Virginia, which operates federally funded research and development centers, FFRDCs, for the federal government. The Department of Defense ended its contract with MITRE in April 2019, effectively cutting ties with Jason. However, due to the efforts of the Department of Energy as well as others within the government to include an act of Congress, the contract was reinstated and is now again with the Department of Defense. The Jason Group was an advisory collective of brilliant scientific minds who have been actively developing technology and finding solutions to problems within the government since the 1960s. Science is pretty cool, but science with a top-secret classification is exponentially cooler, as if it were science with a pair of Ray-Ban Wayfarers and some boating shoes on, skirting the Santa Monica coast on a 50 yacht without a care in the world. The Jason Group, the Jasons for short, were not residents of Santa Monica at the time, but were visiting and using the University of California campus as a base of operations for a high-speed government task, the brainstorming and drafting of the plan to create the MCNAMARA line, the first prototype for an automated battlefield, an unmanned defensive barrier set along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, meant to impede the North Vietnamese freedom of movement along the trail that previously allowed a heavy flow of troops and supplies seamlessly to the theater of war in the South. Esteemed scientists John Wheeler and Charles H. Towns started the group, and their early days were spent gathering at Dana Hall and conducting joint research for the government's defense sector, like the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, which in its infancy nicknamed them Project Sunrise, which sounds pretty zen, but was ultimately rejected in favor of the current more heroic name. The Jasons came to be during a volatile period of U.S. history. Old Glory was locked into the Cold War, and the symptomatic proxy conflicts that came with it. The prevention of Soviet expansion following the 1947 Truman Doctrine erupted into a geopolitical rift between the US and their once World War II ally, formerly known as the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, USSR. During this time, both nations ramped up production of nuclear development, an area that some of the early Jason were quite familiar with. The most detailed public account of Jason's contribution to the Vietnam War is contained in the Pentagon Papers, the 1966 Jason Summer Study, which gave birth to a new form of technological warfare, now known as the automated or electronic battlefield. The situation leading up to this report is as follows. Even while campaigning for re-election on a peace platform in 1964, Lyndon Johnson was accepting plans from his military advisors for increased levels of fighting in Vietnam. Early in 1965, he launched the program of sustained bombing against North Vietnam, Operation Rolling Thunder. After more than a year of this campaign, there was a growing opposition to the war among the American public, and there was also disillusionment within some parts of the government over the failure of the bombing to achieve its military objectives. Early in 1966, a clique of Harvard-MIT scientists with high-level connections in Washington persuaded Defense Secretary Robert McNamara to sponsor a special study on technical possibilities in relation to our military operations in Vietnam. With this prompting, McNamara formally requested the scientists to look into the feasibility of a fence across the infiltration trails, warning systems, reconnaissance, especially night methods, night vision devices, defoliation techniques, and area denial weapons. This special scientific study group was assembled under the auspices of the Jason Division of IDA. The group of 47 scientists represented the cream of the scholarly community in technical fields, a group of America's most distinguished scientists, men who had helped the government produce many of its most advanced technical weapons systems since the end of the Second World War, men who were not identified with the vocal academic criticism of the administration's Vietnam policy. This Jason study group met during the summer of 1966, starting off with a series of briefings by high officials from the Pentagon, the Central Intelligence Agency, the State Department, and the White House. They were given access to secret materials. The Jason report, given to McNamara at the beginning of September, was in 4 parts. 1. The effects of U.S. bombing in North Vietnam. 1. Viet Cong, North Vietnam, Army logistics and manpower. 2. An air-supported anti-infiltration barrier. And 3. Summary of results, conclusions, and recommendations. This report was regarded as particularly sensitive, and the only persons to receive copies, outside of McNamara, were General Wheeler and Mr. Rostow. The writers of the Pentagon Papers evaluated this Jason report as exerting a powerful and perhaps decisive influence in McNamara's mind concerning future U.S. policies in Vietnam. As the New York Times' presentation of the Pentagon Papers summarizes, there the Jason Summer Studies report evaluating the results of the Rolling Thunder campaign began. As of July 1966, the U.S. bombing of North Vietnam had had no measurable direct effect on Hanoi's ability to mount and support military operations in the South at the current level. They then pointed out the reasons that they felt North Vietnam could not be hurt by bombing. It was primarily a subsistence agricultural country with little industry and a primitive but flexible transport system, and most of its weapons and supplies came from abroad. These factors, the scientists said, made it quite unlikely that an expanded bombing campaign would prevent Hanoi from infiltrating men into the South at the present or a higher rate. In conclusion, the Pentagon study says, the scientists addressed the assumption behind the bombing program, that damage inflicted on a country reduces its will to continue fighting. The scientists criticized this assumption, the study says, by denying that it is possible to measure the relationship. It must be concluded, the scientists said, that there is currently no adequate basis for predicting the levels of U.S. military effort that would be required to achieve the stated objectives. Indeed, there is no firm basis for determining if there is any feasible level of effort that would achieve these objectives. The Gravel edition of the Pentagon Papers continues. The true extent of the Jason's research and studies is unknown and unavailable to the general public, due to their top-secret classified nature. That also applies to the names of members, both past and present, with the exception of some of the more prominent ones, most of whom were Nobel Peace Prize winners. With that being said, there are a few now unclassified projects worth mentioning. The McNamara line. As mentioned earlier, The MCNAMARA line was one of the first major projects the Jasons embarked on, in this case, directly for the then Secretary of Defense, Robert McNamara. This project resulted in the construction of an anti-infiltration barrier with the utilization of various ground sensors that could transmit data about enemy activity to a centralized computer, which would then dispatch airstrikes without the need for boots on the ground. This innovation in battlefield technology was the precursor for the electronic battlefield concept, one that includes the heavily used U.S. drone program. Project Sanguine. This U.S. Navy project was assisted by research from the Jasons. To simplify, the goal of the project was to develop a radio tower that was powerful enough to transmit extremely low-frequency (ELF) waves to submerged deep-water submarines. The original project was proposed in 1968 and was maintained through various changes in name and function until it shut down in 2004 after a long history of controversy from politicians and environmentalists. Adaptive optics. The history of the U.S. government study of adaptive optics was declassified in 1991. This concept was studied by the Jasons with the intent of tracking possible Soviet satellites and weapons that could be launched from orbit. Through the evolution of the group from its conception to the present day, a shift was eventually made from strict defense into other fields of scientific study, all in support of the government. This includes agriculture, climate change, and a myriad of peer-reviewed studies and reports, some publicly available. At an international symposium on physics held in Trieste in September, 5 Jason physicists, Professors Wigner, Wheeler, Towns, Weinberg, and Montreux, were confronted by 300 persons who denounced them as war criminals. The only response by the 5 came from Professor Wigner, who said, "I am flattered by your accusations. They are compliments for me." When the meeting was moved to a suburb, 100 riot police were called on to block the protesters. Le Monde, September 30th, 72. At a summer school on the history of physics, held at Verona, Italy in August, there was circulated a statement on Vietnam, saying, in part, "The operational use of scientific knowledge in the Indochina War is of particular concern to us. Our discussions have convinced us that it is no longer possible to separate out attitudes on these issues from our professional activities. This is why we express, as scientists and in the publications and institutions of science, our condemnation of those colleagues who have willingly involved themselves in the waging of this war. We ask that these issues should be honestly faced within the scientific community, wherever it meets." The Jason Group was specifically cited in this statement for their contribution to the technology of the war. This statement was signed by almost all, about 60, of the participating scientists, mostly Europeans, and some of them were men of considerable prestige. This same statement was circulated for signatures at a large physics meeting in the United States in September, the High Energy Conference at the National Accelerator Laboratory. Only 21 scientists signed out of over 700, and most of the signers were European. Can American scientists evade these issues? We feel that we make up a community of shared work and common understanding, students, teachers, and researchers. Can it be a matter of indifference to us that some members of the community, even some of its leaders, serve a military adventure that most of us regard as criminal? The overall involvement of scientists with government is an enormous subject. The issue is posed perhaps most sharply by the Jason Group, an elite panel within the Institute for Defense Analyses, IDA. The President's Science Advisory Committee, PSAC, which works directly for the President, is still more select than Jason and presumably more influential. But in Jason, we see long-range strategic advice to the Department of Defense associated with the symbols of academic science. The 40-odd members of Jason include some of the very best-known physicists in America, working at the most prestigious universities. While maintaining their public personalities as esteemed professors, they have been quietly helping the Department of Defense with what? They are not free to answer. The first aim of this study is to assemble some of the story of this classified work. An especially significant contribution of Jason to the Vietnam War was revealed in the Pentagon Papers. In a 1966 report, a Jason Group drew up general outlines for a system of sensors, communications links, aircraft, mines, and bombs intended to stop transport of soldiers and supplies into South Vietnam. This system, adopted and expanded by the Pentagon, has become what is now known as the automated battlefield. It has made possible the policy of minimizing American casualties while continuing to devastate Indochina and its people through technological warfare. It has made possible Nixon's plan to prosecute the war indefinitely or until he can achieve peace with honor. It is being readied for other future wars. Thus, everyone concerned with anti-democratic forces in our society should be vitally interested in the nature of Jason and its activities. In this report, we present the best information available to us on this important issue. In addition to tracing the consequences of this one Jason project, we will give a few indications from the meager, unclassified material available of the wide range of Jason's still secret work. The second chapter summarizes rather fully several Jason members' own account of their own experiences and attitude in this work. The bulk of this chapter is based on personal interviews conducted in 1972. Finally, we offer an analysis of the issues raised and suggest some proposals for action. While this report focuses on the activities of the Jason Group, Jason is by no means an isolated or unique phenomena. This case study of Jason serves to illustrate the nature of relationships which exist generally between elite academic scientists and government, military, and business agencies. These relationships facilitate the routine implementation of policy decisions of sweeping social consequences without the knowledge or consent of the people or their elected representatives. In the summer of 1966, the spirit science was amongst the beachgoers of Santa Monica, embodied as a powerful government asset consisting of some of the most brilliant minds in nuclear physics, chemistry, mechanical engineering, and various other high IQ required fields of study. Among the more recent activities was a non-consensus commensurate, in other words, providing a view alternative to the prevailing one in the Federal Executive Department which commissioned the report, and now declassified, report to the State Department dismissing sounds associated with the Havana Syndrome cases as caused by crickets, as opposed to microwave weapons. This was followed by a 2021 report in which Jason again found no compelling evidence that the anomalous health incidents, AHI, were caused by a deliberate attack using a radio frequency or any other directed energy weapon. Jason members, known informally as Jasons, include physicists, biologists, chemists, oceanographers, mathematicians, and computer scientists, predominated by theoretical physicists. They are selected by current members and over the years have included 11 Nobel Prize laureates and several dozen members of the United States National Academy of Sciences. Claire Ellen Max was the first female scientist invited to join in 1983. All members have a wide range of security clearances that allow them to do their work. The founders of Jason include John Wheeler and Charles H. Towns. Other early members included Murray Gell-Mann, S. Courtney Wright, Robert Gomer, Walter Munk, Hans Bethe, Nick Christopoulos, Frederick Zachariasen, Marshall Rosenbluth, Ed Freeman, Hal Lewis, Sam Tryman, Conrad Longmire, Stephen Weinberg, Roger Dashin, and Freeman Dyson. Some Nobel Prize-winning members of Jason include Donald Glaser, Val Fitch, Murray Gell-Mann, Luis Walter Alvarez, Henry Way Kendall, and Stephen Weinberg.